Broadcasting live from an undisclosed location. This is the TCMMA podcast with your host, Chris Cross.
Whoa!
Dana White privilege.
Let's go, baby! Let's go! Let's go! Let's go! Let's go, baby!
Dana White privilege. Privilege.
What's happening? It's your boy Chris Cross checking in. This is the TCMMA podcast. And a lot of stories to get to today, a lot of fight predictions to get to for this Saturday night. UFC Vegas 98. Brandon Royval versus Tatsuro Taira. The undefeated Tatsuro Taira. He's moving up levels to take on Brandon Royval. And I know a lot of times the flyweight division isn't exciting, or the card isn't as exciting when the flyweight division is in the main event. But this one is different. And we're going to get into all that and get into those picks. So stay tuned for that. But first and foremost, let's jump around the world and, or at least the UFC, right? And see what's going on. So a couple of the stories we're going to get into. Sean Strickland blasts the UFC for forgetting it's an American company. And he goes off on Khamzat Chimaev. So stay tuned for that. You're going to love that. Dana White claims Duplessis versus Strickland for UFC Africa is tough to pull off because the event's got to be outside. And that's not easy for MMA, especially for the UFC. I mean, there's too many things that could potentially go wrong, right? So they're having a struggle with that. Dana White also would absolutely love to see former UFC champion return. Which UFC champion is he talking about? Stay tuned for that. Daniel Cormier dismisses PFL and Bellator, says UFC is the only place to earn superstardom. That's an easy story. He's 100% right. Daniel Cormier usually making sense, right? Also, no meetings between Dana White and Conor McGregor while Notorious is in Las Vegas. And that's just contract stuff. I mean, all we're going to do is repeat what we already said, because what we already said continues to play out. It continues to be true. And you don't always see it in the headlines. But the story between Dana White, the UFC, and McGregor all remains the same. Also, Brendan Schaub suggests Khalil Roundtree Jr. will never be the same following the stoppage, tough fight, loss to Alex Pereira at UFC 307. So, yeah, a lot to get to. A lot to get to. So, let's just start with Sean Strickland blasting the UFC and then going in on Khamzat Chimaev, right? So he recently said, I believe this is it's either on Twitter or Instagram. I'm pretty sure it's Twitter, but I could be wrong. He said, I love how the world just overlooks Khamzat Chimaev's past. Builds a life in Sweden, goes and becomes best friends with an absolute monster. Then when the leash got too tight, he fled to the Middle East. You should not be allowed in this country. So, tough one, right? Because I'm a big Khamzat fan. I like Sean Strickland. Things are very political right now. You kind of know which way I lean. But you're at a crossroads with me when you're talking about Khamzat. Of course, Khamzat should be allowed in the country. He's a professional UFC fighter. He's one of the best out there, if not the best. And he's not allowed in the country. And for Sean Strickland to even take this road, because it's kind of like, okay, Sean Strickland supports the Trump side, right? So if Strickland supports the Trump side and it's the other side which is keeping Khamzat out of the country, I'm pretty sure if Trump gets in office and Dana White makes a phone call, I'm pretty sure that Khamzat Chimaev is getting in the country to fight for a title. It's just the way it's going to be. It's going to happen. So it's just weird because Sean Strickland is just jumping political sides without even realizing it on this one. And, you're getting into my boy, right? You're getting into Khamzat Chimaev.
Khamzat Chimaev!
Yeah. Submitted somebody, right? He's going to beat everybody on the way up. Trying to tell you, Khamzat Chimaev is going to beat everybody on the way up.
Whoa!
including Robert Whittaker at UFC 308. And you know what's about to happen. I told y'all we're gonna ease off on Khamzat for a little while because we got the Contender Series, we got Saturday night fights, and this thing is rolling for like 10 straight weeks. We're gonna get bogged down. We're gonna be tired. We're gonna be trying to keep up. But we know when all this comes to an end, Khamzat is right around the corner in about 2 or 3 weeks, getting ready to fight. So I told you we were coming back to this, and I'm kind of working my way out of the Contender Series stuff right now, getting into the last few predictions and all that. But the bottom line is I'm ready to move on with the rest of the season, and Khamzat is on deck. And Sean Strickland can say what he wants, but you better worry about Duplessis. Speaking of Duplessis, Dana White claims that the Duplessis-Strickland fight is very tough to pull off in Africa, mainly due to high winds. I think he even said cockroaches, maybe something like that. But here's what he told reporters exactly last night. He said, "You know how bad I want this? I've been trying to get this thing done. The arena situation is tough. It's tough to pull off." So that's been the challenge with Africa as a whole. We're trying to figure it out. The place that we would have to do it at is outdoors. And you know how I feel about that. So I've been trying to figure out the weather. And one of the big things that I've been hearing out there is that wind is a big problem. Yeah. So trying to pull that off with wind, rain, bugs, too much humidity potentially, a lot of things that can interfere with the fight. How do you even, do you know the type of stress level? I mean, it's one thing to go into the Sphere last month and do that. It's like, at least it's indoors and you don't have to worry about weather. When you start factoring in weather, you got a problem, right? And I do the podcast outside. So weather is always an issue. Sometimes it's too hot. Sometimes it's 0 degrees outside. Sometimes it's raining. Sometimes it's snowing. Sometimes the sun is bright. There's just every day there's like a different factor you got to put up with. And I can imagine if you're trying to put on a full MMA event with all the money that goes into it and you get there and on fight night it's wind and rain and it's going crazy and you can't have the fight. Like, or you do and it's just crazy. So it's hard to believe that they're going to even try to pull that off. If they do, we'll see what happens. But it's going to be very difficult. Also, Dana White would absolutely love to see former UFC champion return. He says, "I love Amanda Nunes. I have a great relationship with her, and I would absolutely love to see her come back." Well, who wouldn't? Right? People are tuning in, and if Amanda Nunes returns, now it's returning after the retirement, right? So who started all that? I know it was probably way before. Remember, was it Jay-Z with the Black Album? Was that the right one? When Jay-Z said this is the final album or whatever, something along those lines, and everybody flooded. Boom, got to get it. This is the last one until the next album came out, right? So, I mean, this is what happens with fighters too. I mean, they say they're gone, and then when they come back, it's even bigger, right? Because now it's like, oh my God, it might be the last fight again. So, but for this thing to happen, Amanda Nunes, you got Amanda Nunes right now, Kayla Harrison, you got Juliana Pena. If Juliana Pena wants to fight Nunes, which she wants, I'm sure she doesn't want to fight Kayla Harrison right now. They want to slow her down. She would have to fight Nunes in the women's featherweight division. I don't think Nunes is coming back in the bantamweight. Also, Kayla Harrison is struggling to make weight. So if you're Dana White right now, why not revive the women's featherweight division? Let Juliana Pena hold on to the bantamweight belt right now and start a merry-go-round situation with these three. You can keep Nunes around longer in the featherweight division. You got Kayla Harrison for sure is going to be around for a little bit. Juliana Pena is going to be around, and then you really got to focus on all the fighters below them and start to groom them and get them ready and get them fights and start to build that division, because there's women there that want to fight in that division, and they can't all get down to 135 pounds. You need a women's 145. But without Nunes and nothing below her really, they just scrapped the whole division. And maybe they'll bring it back. That's the word on the street. We'll see. I'm excited. The more divisions, the better. Daniel Cormier dismisses PFL and Bellator, says UFC is the only place to earn superstardom. So is that true? Is the UFC the only place to earn superstardom? You're darn right. And hopefully we can keep it that way. Again, always a comparison with boxing. Some of you younger people out there that are listening, when I was a little younger, boxing was the deal, but it was already splintering into multiple promotions. So like you'd have 8 different UFCs, all right, maybe 4 or 5, and you didn't know who the champion was, and a lot of times the other, they wouldn't let the fighters fight each other, so you got 2 heavyweight champions or 3 or 4 or whatever, and it just ruined everything. And now nobody cares, unless it's like Jake Paul fighting, which is irrelevant in terms of a championship. No meetings between Dana White and Conor McGregor while McGregor's in Las Vegas. And listen, as I told you before, they want to get McGregor signed to a contract. He only has 2 fights left. McGregor doesn't want to sign the contract, which means he's not really trying to win a championship again, right? He's just trying to get out of Dodge, just trying to run out the contract and get out of there, and be seen again and then get back into boxing or something like that. So it's just, and I'm sure Conor McGregor wants to get out from underneath Dana White in terms of the contract, and Dana White's a businessman. He's not going to let it be that easy. And then you're hurt, so you can't fight. Now it delays it longer. It's just better for the UFC. It's just McGregor's just is starting to get older, and if I'm him, I just say forget it. Let me just go for everything I can in the UFC. And if not, then he might just be thinking I'm never going to win a title again. So that's starting to set in, and now he's looking at other ventures, before he gets too old. And that's sad, because I still think McGregor could be a champion, but he'd have to get real serious real quick, and I just don't think it's going to happen. Brendan Schaub suggests Khalil Roundtree Jr. will never be the same following the stoppage loss to Alex Pereira at UFC 307. And I think Brendan Schaub is onto something here. We won't know until the next couple fights, but Khalil Roundtree looked good in that fight. He looked strong. He looked capable of winning. And his heart just kept him in the fight for so long, and you're just taking it from Alex Pereira at a high level. I mean, that dude is, not many people stand with him for 4 rounds that aren't named Adesanya. And see, Adesanya is so good at really kind of matching up with Pereira, and he picked the right time to land some big shots and get the finish over him. But he's got the kickboxing style too, and that slows Pereira down. So it's not like the same 3 or 4 rounds that it would be with Khalil. Him and Khalil were just going at it, man. And Khalil had some chances in the second, third round. He just ran out of gas. So highly, highly interesting stuff. And, there's a lot of good stories going on right now in the UFC. So that's what you got. Now, as we move over into UFC Vegas 98, right? We're going to start in the prelims with a big one. But before we get there, a couple fights. You got Clayton Carpenter versus Lucas Rocha from Brazil. That's a flyweight division fight. I think Rocha's from the Contender Series, if I'm not mistaken. But one guy that's definitely from the Contender Series is Cody Haddon, making his debut bantamweight division against Dan Argueta. And I'm highly looking forward to that one. But let's jump into the first one, welterweight division, Themba Gorimbo. I know you remember him. If you don't, I'll explain here in the prediction. Taking on Nico Price. This is 13-4 versus 16-7, Zimbabwe versus UFC. Let's get into it right now. In the welterweight division at UFC Vegas 98, you got Themba Gorimbo. He's back taking on Nico Price, and this is going to be a great fight. Now, if you don't remember Themba Gorimbo, this is the guy who The Rock bought a house for, right? To help him in his situation and his goal of becoming a UFC champion. Took the stress off of him in terms of money and things like that, and his family not being here. So he's had that now for a good year, or maybe even 2 at this point. So that's what The Rock did for him, and he's looked impressive as of late. Gorimbo, 13-4. Nico Price, 16-7. Gorimbo, 1 inch taller, is 6'1". He's 33. Price, 35. So for both guys, the time is now. Like, you start hitting the mid-40s, you're starting to run out of steam. No doubt about it. That's what we've seen. Gorimbo, 1 inch reach advantage. Both guys stand right-handed, so no big differences yet. Now here we go for Gorimbo. This is a true test because Price, 5.6, 5.7 significant strikes per minute. That's impressive. 2.5 per minute for Garimbo. Now, the takedown game is where Garimbo thrives, right? Well over a takedown per round. He lands like 4 on average per 3 rounds. Nico Price gets like 1 over 3 rounds. So the first thing I want to know is a takedown defense of Nico Price, right? That's going to be a big factor here, and it's 62%. So that leads me to believe that Garimbo is going to be able to get some takedowns. I'm a little nervous about the strike game from Nico Price. I'm a little nervous, but what I do expect, at least right now, and this is going for the next 18 months to 2 years, Garimbo is going to be at his best. And what The Rock did for him gave him some, financial freedom a little bit. Not have to worry about getting a house and get your family here, and then you can just focus on training for the sport. And what that means is he's going to be looking better and better every time out. So I got to say, okay, he looked good in his last fight. He's going to look even better here. Is that good enough to beat Nico Price? Yes, it is. But it's going to be close. But the guy from Zimbabwe wins this fight. Themba Garimbo, in my opinion, wins a very close fight. If he gets a finish, I'll be surprised. Very capable. But it's just he's moving up levels now. But he'll get the win here by decision to move to 14-4. Welterweight division. UFC Vegas, 98. Yeah, we got to go with Themba Garimbo. This guy is solid. But Nico Price is no joke. He's no joke. And you expect a good win here, welterweight division, 170 pounds. Of course, not as big as 185, but they're bigger than lightweight. I like this division. I've always liked this division. I want to see this division thrive and continue to have good fighters, which it does. Like Shavkat's coming up. Ian Gary's coming up. Of course, you got Bilal Muhammad as a champ now, and he looked so good against Leon Edwards. Like, you could tell he's been working with Khabib and Islam Makhachev and the whole team, so that's going to be a problem going forward. So this division is starting to beef up again, and what happens is when you have a really good champion in a division, you don't realize, but while they're holding the belt, the rest of the division is getting stronger underneath. Because now it's like everyone's fighting for 1, 2, and 3 contender, and it just starts beefing up. And Bilal could do that for this division if he can hold on to it for 3 or 4 fights, which is possible. But there's some heavy hitters on the rise. There are some heavy hitters on the rise in this division. Make no mistake about it. Now, as we work our way up into the main card, we're going to get into Abdul Razak Al Hassan versus Josh Fremd. This is obviously going to be a good fight. This is a middleweight division fight, 185 pounds, 2 big guys. And you just never know which Al Hassan is going to show up, because when he finishes people, it's awesome. It's awesome. Looks like we didn't have this one tuned up, but I'll find it. I'll find it. There we go. All right, let's jump into this right now. Al Hassan versus Josh Fremd. Check it out. In the middleweight division at UFC Vegas 98, you got your boy Abdul Razak Al Hassan. A lot of power there. Take it on, Josh Fremd. Now, Al Hassan, 12-6. Not great. Fighting out of Ghana. Fremd, USA. Fremd is 6 inches taller at 6'4". He's 30 years old. Al Hassan, 39. Wow, he's getting up there. Fremd, 3-inch reach advantage. Both guys stand right-handed. Al Hassan more active on the feet, 3.6. Significant strikes, 2.5 for Fremd. This is per minute. Neither guy over a takedown over the course of 3 rounds. So Fremd does not have good numbers. Al Hassan, 51% takedown defense, had the no contest against Cody Brundage. That didn't help. Before that, he lost 2 out of 3 to Joaquin Buckley by split decision. Joe Pyfer by submission. He did KO Claudio Ribeiro. So 1 win in the last 4, not great. Fremd has lost the last 2 to Andre Petrosky, decision. Was KO'd by Roman Kopylov, but beat Jamie Pickett and Cedric Dumas, who he beat by submission. So, the guy's capable of winning. And it's not like Al Hassan is great. He does possess a lot of power. Don't like the numbers for Fremd, but he does find ways to win. I just think Al Hassan's a little bit better right now, and therefore I got to lean towards Al Hassan to probably get the decision victory, right? I don't think it's going to be a finish for Fremd. That's the only way I see him winning. So I see Al Hassan getting to the finish line, winning the decision. Close fight, 2 rounds to 1, in my opinion. Middleweight division. UFC Vegas, 98. Yeah, so it's like, why do you say decision, right? Because Al Hassan either rocks people or he gets rocked. But something just tells me this is going to go to a decision. Josh Fremd is a worthy opponent, and I think he's going to lose, but he's going to take this thing to a decision. Make no mistake about it. Now, in the next one, you got D-Rod, Daniel Rodriguez versus Alex Morono. This is going to be a big-time fight with two guys that are always capable of putting on a show. So let's get into that right now. In the welterweight division at UFC Vegas 98, you got D-Rod, Daniel Rodriguez, coming in 17-5, taking on your boy Alex Morono, who comes in at 24-10. USA versus USA. Rodriguez 2 inches taller at 6'1". He's 37, getting up there. Morono just 34. So he's like, just coming out of that prime window, so still really in the prime. Rodriguez, 2-inch reach advantage, 74-72. He stands left-handed, southpaw. Morono stands right-handed. D-Rod is no stranger to activity. This guy lands nearly 7.5 significant strikes per minute. Morono lands 5, which is still respectable. Neither guy looking to get takedowns. This is going to be a stand-up striking affair. We love it. Now, D-Rod has lost 3 in a row. So forget the numbers, right? He got submitted by Neil Magny, got KO'd by Ian Gary, and lost the decision to Kelvin Gastelum. And that's when he had to get, but he gave up 4 takedowns. He led 127-112 in significant strikes. So that's where you see the high numbers, right? He's capable of getting the significant strikes and landing, but he's susceptible to takedowns, but not in this one. Morono's going to want to keep the fight standing. He's lost 2 of the last 3. It's a Nico Price decision. Joaquin Buckley decision. He did beat Court McGee by decision, but we're still scratching our heads trying to figure out how. Because Court McGee led 60-38 in significant strikes and had a takedown. Morono did not. Somehow, Morono won the fight with 38 significant strikes. That's crazy. So this is an easy one for me. D-Rod's going to win. He's much more active on the feet. I'd like to see him get the finish, but regardless, if it goes to a decision, he's going to win this fight. He's just got to avoid the KO, right? In doing so, he moves to 18-5, welterweight division, UFC Vegas 98. Yeah, so that was an easy one. D-Rod, by activity, just going to overwhelm Morono. I'd love to see him get the finish, but it's probably going to a decision. But definitely a good fight there, for sure. I always like D-Rod. He always brings it. May not win, but he's going to bring it every time. So as we work our way up, next you got Grant Dawson versus Rafa Garcia. Tell me this is a lightweight fight. Tell me it's a lightweight. Yes, it is. 21-2. I didn't realize he was that good. Dawson's 21-2. Rafa Garcia 16-3. USA versus Mexico. Wow, this is a big one. Let's jump into it right now. In the lightweight division at UFC Vegas 98, the lightweight division is always awesome. Well, in this one, you got Grant Dawson taking on Rafa Garcia. Quite an interesting matchup. I mean, Dawson 21-2, very good. Rafa Garcia 16-3, very good as well. It's USA versus Mexico. Dawson 3-inch reach advantage, height advantage, excuse me. He's 5'10", Garcia 5'7", both guys 30 years old. In terms of reach, that's where I was going. 2-inch reach advantage for Grant Dawson. He's a switch stance fighter. Garcia stands right-handed. Now, in terms of activity, that leans towards Rafa Garcia's over 4 significant strikes per minute. Grant Dawson under 3 per minute. So you're looking at 15 to 20 significant strike difference in favor of Garcia. Takedown game, unbelievable. Both guys exactly 3.61 over 3 rounds. That means they're both landing more than a takedown each round. But I've never seen 2 guys with exactly the same takedown average. That's wild. Now, Dawson 57% takedown defense, Garcia 79%. So that favors Garcia. Now, Dawson's won 2 of the last 3, beating Joe Selecki. And Damir Ismagulov, he did lose to King Green by KO. But he looked good in the other 2 fights, landing 6 takedowns and dominating on the feet before he ran into a wall against King Green. But that fight, he lost that in 33 seconds. So it was over before he knew what happened. Now, on the other hand, Garcia has some momentum. He's won 4 of the last 5, including the last 2. He beat Clay Guida by decision, Mahashev by decision. Both of those fights he dominated on the feet. He actually had 6 takedowns against Mahashev. He lost to Drakkar Klose, beat Jesse Ronson and Nathan Levy. So interesting fight here. I mean, I think Rafa Garcia's got a chance to win. He's got the better numbers. But it's just tough with Grant Dawson because the guy is so tough. I mean, he is so tough. And he really is beating everyone in his way. I don't see like big time wins on Rafa Garcia's resume. So even though it appears that Grant Dawson is struggling a little bit, I think he's got a good chance to win this fight and overcome the numbers. He just has better competition. So the numbers are lower, but he's got to get the strike game up. I mean, the takedown game is there. How will that level off against Rafa Garcia, who can go to the ground too? That's going to be interesting, but he's got to get the significant strikes up if he wants to move up in this division. So we'll see what happens. But listen, the guy is 21-2. Let's not forget that. In my opinion, he'll be 22-2 with the win. Hard to say how, because the guy's got subpar numbers, but he's 21-2. So go figure. Dawson gets the win. Lightweight division. UFC Vegas, 98. Yeah, it's kind of like the Chiefs in the NFL, man. These guys, they've been in some close games. They just find ways to win. And that's kind of how Grant Dawson is in the UFC. Like, he's 21-2. The numbers are not up to par with any guy I would predict in any other fight. But he's 21-2 for a reason. A guy finds ways to win. I mean, it's crazy. How do you go against him? You can't. So he loses. Now, in the next one, you got Chidi and Joe Kuwani versus Jared Gooden. Highly interesting fight. Chidi's a guy, too, like Al Hassan, that can get a finish at any time, and he could be finished. So you just don't know what's going to happen in this one. Let's get into it right now. In the welterweight division at UFC Vegas 98, you got Chidi and Joe Kuwani taking on Jared Gooden. And I like this matchup for a lot of reasons. So let's just jump right into it here. And Joe Kuwani 23-10, Gooden 23-9, USA versus USA. And Joe Kuwani's a tall guy, right? 6'3", compared to the 6-foot Gooden. He's 35 though. Gooden just 30. So got one guy in the middle of the prime. Chidi is outside the prime now, but still really good. And Joe Kuwani, 3-inch reach advantage. Both guys stand right-handed. Now Gooden lands 5 significant strikes per minute to Chidi's 4. So that's about 15 significant strike difference over the course of the fight. Neither guy really looking to go to the ground, but Gooden can take it there like once every 3 rounds on average. But Chidi's got a 74% takedown defense. That'll help. He's coming off the win against Rice McGee by split decision. Before that, he lost 3 in a row to Gregory Robocop Rodriguez, Albert Duraev, and McCall Alexichuk, and 2 of those were KOs. The Duraev fight went to a split decision. Now Gooden, on the other hand, coming off the win over Wellington Turman. Big one, too, by submission. But before that, he lost to Carlston Harris by decision and Randy Rude Boy Brown by decision. And in that fight against Randy Brown, he actually had 81 significant strikes, but lost the fight. Well, that's because Randy Brown had 115. So there you have it. But not a bad showing in that fight. In the other 2 fights, he's around 50 significant strikes each fight. So neither guy is lighting up the scoreboard. But in this one, I got to lean slightly to Chidi. I mean, this guy, I think he needs to put together a few wins. I think he's better than the 10 losses that you see on his record, right? He's not great. He's not top 5, top 10, but he's still a really good welterweight fighter and could potentially move in that direction if he can put together, 4 or 5 wins here. This will be number 2, so he's got to get the ball rolling right now where he's 35. I think he'll feel that pressure. He'll get the win by decision and in a close fight, but he's going to win 2 out of 3 rounds to move to 24-10, in my opinion. Welterweight division, UFC Vegas 98. Yeah, and that's a little bit tougher than the other predictions on this card. It's not written in stone, in my opinion, that Chidi wins. I just, when you got to pick one, I got to go and lean towards Chidi. Again, I love the welterweight division, much like the lightweight division. I want to see this one beef up, and a guy like Chidi can help do that. I don't think he's going to be like top 5, but he can get into the top 10 and cause some problems, for sure. but he's just too inconsistent. He's not consistent enough. He's got to start winning and putting together a win streak for people to take him serious. That's the bottom line. Now, as we jump into the co-main event, things get interesting. Middleweight division, big boys, 185. Brad Tavares, 20-10, not the greatest record, but he's got 20 wins. Jung Park, very similar, 17-6. USA versus Korea. And it's going to be a good fight, man. Two guys with a lot of, 37 combined wins. So two guys that are very capable of putting together a win streak, and it could begin right here. So let's jump into it right now. In the middleweight division at UFC Vegas 98, your co-main event, you got Brad Tavares taking on Jung Park. Tavares 20-10, Park 17-6. This is USA versus Korea. Now Tavares 3 inches taller at 6'1". He's 36 years old. Park 33. Tavares 1 inch reach advantage, 74-73. Both guys stand right-handed. Tavares 3.4 significant strikes per minute to 4.5 for Park. So Park's going to be a little more active in this fight. He also lands more takedowns. Nearly 2 per 3 rounds. Tavares less than 1 over 3 rounds. So how's Tavares going to pull this thing off? Well, he's got an 81% takedown defense, right? But he's lost 3 of the last 4. KO against RoboCop Gregory Rodriguez. He did beat Chris Weidman by decision and lost to Bruno Silva, good fighter. Dricus du Plessis, very good fighter. And hung in there with du Plessis, right? 113-82 in significant strikes. But after that, he got KO'd in 2 of the next 3 fights. Now, Jung Park, the Iron Turtle, 57% takedown defense. Not great at all. Lost to Andre Muniz by split decision. Beat Albert Duraev, Denise Tuliulin, and Joseph Holmes to win 3 of the last 4. So these guys are on the opposite ends of momentum. The thing is with Tavares, though, is he's fought some really good fighters, and Bruno Silva, really good. Dricus du Plessis, even RoboCop can land a KO at any time, as he did. And Tavares is getting dominated in that fight, but he's fighting good fighters. So he's got a chance in this fight. Make no mistake about it. But I'm not going against Jung Park. I mean, the Korean's a bad dude. He's got the momentum right now, although he did lose the last fight, right? He did lose the last fight, but by split decision. He could very easily be on a 5-fight win streak right now. So I got to lean towards Jung Park to get the job done here, likely by decision. And listen, he's still a younger guy. That means a lot. He's a little shorter, too. He's punching upward, but he's going to be more active and can take the fight to the ground if necessary. So keep an eye on that. But he wins this fight likely by decision to move to 18-6, middleweight division, UFC Vegas 98. Yeah, so the predictions are getting tougher in the lead up to the main event, and this one is definitely no different. I mean, both guys capable of winning. Jung Park, again, as I stated a second ago, it could very easily be on a 5-fight win streak. So, you got to lean towards this guy to win the fight. Certainly can bounce back from a split decision loss. If anything, it enrages you when you lose that way, and especially when it could have been 5 in a row. And you could be in a whole different levels type fight here, where you could be fighting a highly ranked guy if you'd have won that fight. But instead, you get Brad Tavares, and you just got to get back in the win column. And next thing you know, they're looking at it and they're like, "Whoa, he's won 5 of the last 6. Let's throw him a bone. Let's get him a good fight, and then see what he can do." But it starts here, and in my opinion, Jung Park wins this fight. Now, in the main event, and I know the casuals are not paying attention this week, right? It's a flyweight main event, but you got to pay attention. You got Brandon Royval, who's been a staple of the division for a long time, right? Has struggled to get to the top of the mountain, but is very good. But Tatsuro Taira is on the rise, and this guy's 16-0, and a lot of people are going to want to see him win to challenge for the belt. And this is a big one for him. You get Royval as a win on your resume, that really helps get a top contender or maybe a title fight, just because we need some new action in this division. So Tyra's on a big stage here in the main event, but does that mean he's going to win? I'm not so sure. Let's get into it right now. In the flyweight division, your main event at UFC Vegas 98, you got Brandon Royval taking on Tatsuro Taira. This is a rising guy, 16-0, undefeated, Brandon Royval has been around for a while. He's 16-7, and this will be a huge win if Taira can pull it off. Because Royval's got all types of experience. He's 2 inches taller at 5'9", is Royval. He's 32, Taira 24. So changing of the guard potentially. Taira 2-inch reach advantage, 70-68. He stands right-handed. Royval stands left-handed. So that will be interesting. Royval more active, 4.3 significant strikes per minute to 3.6 for Taira. But Taira is a takedown specialist, landing, just shy of 1 per round. Royval, 40% takedown defense. That could be a problem. Did beat Brandon Moreno last time out by split decision, so let's not get it twisted. Pantoja beat him by decision, but that was for the title. And actually, Royval outstruck him despite being taken down 8 times. So that's where the fight's going to play out here against Taira. Boy, oh boy. Royval's got some experience beating Matthias Nicolau, Matt Schnell, and Rogerio Bontorn. Is he really the underdog here? Taira beating Alex Perez, a guy who I thought, had a lot of potential a few years ago, but it's kind of died out now. He beat him by KO, beat Carlos Hernandez by KO, Edgar Chairez, tough fighter decision, Jesus Aguilar submission. And this is always one of the toughest predictions in terms of the situation. A guy that is solid near the top against a surging contender. The guy near the top in Royval has all types of experience. Is Taira really that good? I think this time he is. I think Tatsuro Taira is just that good. The Japanese fighter is 16-0. He's beaten some solid guys. He doesn't have the fight experience as Royval, but the fact is he's better. The only thing that worries me is he's just 24 years old, but I'm going to have to look past that in this one. Taira gets to win. It's 5 rounds. It could be a finish here, but Royval's a battler. But I just like Taira to get the victory on the takedown game and limit the striking of Royval just enough to get the win here in the flyweight division. Your main event. That's my opinion at UFC Vegas 98. Yeah, so tough one there. And what are we, 19-14 right now? So looking to get the 20th win of the season, just a couple more to guarantee a winning record in a very tough year. And this fight is no different. I mean, it could go either way. But I got to believe that Taira is the better fighter. Right, you're 16-0 for a reason. Yes, every time you step up on the ladder a little bit higher, it gets a little tougher, and eventually you might get beaten, or eventually he might be an undefeated UFC champion. We're gonna find out. I mean, because this is if he goes in there and just levels Brandon Royval or submits him in the first or second round, it's gonna be a huge story, and a lot of people are gonna start paying attention if that happens. Because right now, like, the flyweight is 125. Not a lot of people get excited about it, especially when it's the main event. It makes the whole card look weak. That's just the perception. But I'm here to tell you that this is a big-time fight. This isn't your average high-level, contender fight at a UFC fight night. This is a guy that's 16-0 that could potentially be a UFC champion and be undefeated. So the casuals may not be paying attention, but you are, because you're diehard, and that's just the way it is. But listen, that's a wrap, man. That's UFC Vegas 98. 7 predictions for you. Some other great fights that we discussed. Looking forward to seeing Cody Haddon fight out of the Contender Series. Lucas Rocha as well in the first 2 fights. So here they come. All the, 29 fighters signed. Oh, no, after last night, what is it? 33 now signed, I believe. In what has been a great year at the Contender Series. So they're coming. These guys are coming. And they're making their UFC debuts, and a lot of them are going to win, I'm telling you right now, because it's been a good crop of fighters this year. But that'll do it for the show today. This is your boy, Chris Cross. Hope you have a great day, and God bless. As always, peace.